I woke up earlier than usual that morning, not by much, but enough to notice the quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Not the soft kind that says you're home. This was something else. Still. Flat. Like the air itself was waiting for something to happen. Leslie was still asleep, curled under the comforter on her side of the bed. Her breathing was steady, one leg kicked out from the blankets. I watched her for a second, searching for something, a reason, maybe, to believe what I felt was just me being off. But the unease didn't go away. I padded to the bathroom, rubbing the sleep out of my eyes, and flicked on the light. The mirror was fogged over. She must have showered before going back to bed, something she did when she had anxiety or couldn't sleep. I stepped in front of the sink and reached for the toothbrush. That's when I saw it. In the steam, a name. It wasn't clear at first, but as the fog continued to evaporate, the letters sharpened. Andre. It was traced in small curves, almost childlike. Not my handwriting. Definitely not Leslie's. At least, not any version of it I'd seen on grocery lists or post-its or birthday cards. I stared at it for a long time. Andre. A name that didn't belong in our house. A name I'd never heard her say. And once you see something like that, something that doesn't fit, your eyes start noticing everything else that doesn't too. In the trash bin beside the toilet was a deodorant stick. Not mine. I use those clear gel types, unscented, boring. This was one of those solid white bars, navy blue packaging, labeled with something like Arctic Rush or Mountain Charge, you know, the kind that smells like someone's trying to prove a point. I picked it up, checked the label, sniffed it. Musky. Way too bold for me. Definitely not mine. Back on the counter, beside our usual lineup of toothbrushes, two identical blue ones, hers with the frayed bristles and mine with the paste dried around the neck, sat a third. Black. Clean. New. Just sitting there like it had always belonged. I ran my thumb over the handle. It felt cold. And then I noticed the glass in the sink. Just one. Lipstick on the rim. Red. Not the soft pink Leslie usually wears when we go out. This was striking. Confident. Something I hadn't seen on her in months. I picked it up and turned it slowly. The stain was fresh. I stood there in the bathroom for a long time, holding that glass, staring at my reflection in the mirror just behind that unfamiliar name. When I asked her about it later that morning, I expected the usual, confusion, maybe defensiveness. But she didn't miss a beat. Oh, that, she said, smiling over her coffee. My brother stayed over last week. He brought his new girlfriend. I thought I told you. She sipped, unfazed. I let them crash in the guest room. He always uses those overbearing colognes, you probably smelled it. She even chuckled. Her tone was breezy, like she was talking about a random neighbor or a distant memory. No hesitation. No shift in her voice. No flicker of guilt behind her eyes. I searched her face for something, a crack, an edge, a lie, but found nothing. And somehow that unsettled me more. She kept talking, brushing off the details like they didn't matter. The toothbrush? Her brother's. The deodorant? Also his. The lipstick? Probably his girlfriend's, apparently a big fan of red. The name on the mirror? Just a joke they played, she said, laughing. He calls her Andre, she added with a wink. Long story. I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But something in the back of my mind pulled tight, a quiet, choking rope of doubt. Later that day, just as I thought maybe I was overthinking it all, she said something strange. She called it a game. We were in the kitchen. She was peeling a clementine with almost surgical precision. She looked up at me, smiling that same calm, unreadable smile, and said, "You know what I realized? Relationships are like games. Not the fun kind. Not Monopoly or chess. More like survival." I blinked. What does that mean? She shrugged, popping a slice into her mouth. It's about who cares less. Whoever's colder wins. Doesn't get hurt. The one who's too invested? They lose. Every time. I tried to laugh, assuming it was a joke. That sounds like a horrible game. She raised an eyebrow. Is it? I don't know. Maybe it's just honest. I stood there, feeling like the floor had tilted slightly beneath me. She walked away humming some song I didn't recognize, like we hadn't just crossed some invisible line. From that point forward, everything felt different. Her words kept looping in my head, whoever cares less wins. I didn't realize it then, but that was her first move. The opening note in something quiet and cruel. And suddenly, I wasn't sure if I was her partner anymore or just a player in whatever game she had started. That day at work, I barely made it through the morning. I'd sit down to answer emails and catch myself staring into the middle distance, replaying that name on the mirror. Andre. Every time I thought I could let it go, something else pulled at the thread. It's funny how you can live in the same house with someone and miss the signs until they're practically carved into the walls. Leslie hadn't changed overnight. The shift had been slow. Strategic, maybe? Like she'd been undoing US piece by piece while I was too busy trusting her to notice. Take her phone, for instance. A few weeks ago, she changed the password. Said it was because of a new work policy. They were rolling out some security updates and everyone had to change theirs. I didn't question it at the time. But it wasn't just the password. It was how she started taking it everywhere. I don't mean the normal kind of everywhere. I mean into the bathroom, into the laundry room, even out to the trash can. It used to live on the counter while she cooked or on the nightstand while she slept. Now it never left her hand, like it had secrets it couldn't risk spilling. Then there were the trips. Weekend visits to a friend in the suburbs. A friend I'd never met. A woman named Dana. She said they used to work together, reconnected recently. Leslie started going out there once or twice a month. Said they'd wine and unwind, just girl stuff. The first couple times I didn't think much of it. I even encouraged it. She'd seemed stressed. A break made sense. But something didn't sit right. She stopped answering my calls while she was gone. Text replies, when they came, were short. Cold. The kind of tone you use when you're trying not to engage too much. I'd ask for a photo, something casual, a *T of the wine, a silly selfie, and she'd always say, I forgot, or we were too busy catching up. I wanted to believe her. I told myself not to be the clingy guy, the paranoid husband. But it wore me down. Then there was her wardrobe. She was dressing differently. Bolder. I noticed it the first time she left for Dana's. She wore a tight black dress I hadn't seen before and a new perfume, sharp, expensive, floral with something spicy underneath. When I asked about it, she said she'd been rediscovering herself. Said she'd spent too many years in soft sweaters and ponytails and now she wanted to feel like a woman again. That word hit me weird. Again. Like I had been part of some phase she was shedding. Macy followed suit, or, really, lack of it. We'd always had a quiet rhythm. Not fiery, but real. But lately she'd started pulling away. Physically. Emotionally. Conversations were short. Meals became things we did separately, like roommates with slightly different schedules. She'd eat standing in the kitchen while scrolling her phone. I'd come home to leftovers in the fridge, a note on the counter, went for a run. Love you. But the love didn't land the way it used to. It felt like a placeholder. A word used to maintain order, not affection. One night, I watched her do her makeup before one of her girls' nights. She leaned into the mirror, applying eyeliner with slow precision. The same red lipstick from the glass in the sink made a reappearance. I asked, since when do you wear red? She blinked, smiled at herself in the mirror, and said, I'm trying things. Then she kissed the air and turned on her heel. I didn't know what to say. So I said nothing. That silence, I realize now, became its own kind of permission. A few nights later, I noticed she left her laptop open on the kitchen table. The screen was dark, but the light on the webcam was glowing faintly. I moved to shut it and noticed the email tab open. Not her work email. A Gmail account I didn't recognize. Before I could even process what I was doing, I brushed the mouse and saw messages flicker to life. All of them unreadable, locked behind a password prompt. I didn't try to guess it. I just sat down and stared at the screen. Why did she need another email? Why was it open in the middle of the kitchen? Why did it feel like she wanted me to see it? The next morning, she acted normal. Like nothing had changed. She made eggs. Talked about the weather. Mentioned a new project at work. Her eyes never once met mine, though. And I realized that was becoming common too. She could talk at me for hours, but the moment our eyes locked, something in her went distant. Cold. Like I was a memory she hadn't decided whether to erase or not. That night, as I lay in bed beside her, I stared at the ceiling and tried to count the moments where I might have lost her. Was it something I did? Didn't do? Had I stopped being exciting? Had I made her feel invisible? These questions circled my mind like crows. And yet, beneath the guilt, something else simmered. Anger, maybe? Or clarity. A quiet voice, growing louder, this isn't about you. This is her choice. That realization hurt more than I expected. Because if it wasn't me who drove her away, then it was her who walked. That Thursday night, Leslie told me she'd be out late again. Some work dinner, some regional manager flying in, some pitch they had to rehearse. She spoke quickly, half distracted, like she was too busy to be dishonest but just focused enough to say the right thing. I nodded like I always did. Said okay. Be safe. And she smiled like she always did. Said of course. Kissed me lightly like we were still us. But we weren't. After she left, I stood in the hallway for a long time, staring at the spot where her shoes used to live, now occupied by a sleek pair of black heels I didn't recognize. Like so many things in this house, they didn't belong to the version of her I used to know. I sat down at the dining table with my laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard. For weeks I told myself I wouldn't do it. That if I had to go through her things to find the truth, the relationship was already dead. But the truth was it was dead. I just hadn't buried it yet. Her personal laptop was synced to a cloud account we set up years ago, mostly for backing up photos from trips. She'd used the same password back then for everything. I figured she'd changed it by now. She hadn't. I opened the folder marked June, expecting sunsets or beach photos, and instead saw a string of thumbnails. Not of places. Of people. 2 people. Her and someone else. I clicked on the first image. It was dim, grainy. A bar maybe. She was perched on a tall stool, her legs crossed in that casual way she did when she wanted attention. On her lap, a man's hands rested loosely, confidently. His face was turned slightly away, but hers wasn't. She was smiling. Not just politely. Not for the camera. It was that unguarded kind of smile, like she was genuinely happy. I hadn't seen that smile in months. In another photo, she was kissing his neck. Her red lipstick left a faint smear along his collarbone. I paused and stared, hoping my brain would somehow misread what my eyes so clearly saw. But there was no mistaking it. The dress she wore in the photo, it was the one I found in a dry cleaning bag last week. She'd told me it was for a client event. Said she wasn't even sure she liked it. Apparently he did. Then there was the video. My finger hesitated above the play button for what felt like an hour. Part of me wanted to shut the laptop. Pretend I hadn't seen any of it. But my hand moved on its own, and suddenly the screen filled with motion. She was laughing, leaning over a small table lit by candles. Her face animated, carefree. The guy said something I couldn't quite hear, and she reached across, touching his arm. Then she whispered his name, Tyler. That was the moment. That's when the weight hit me, not a blow, not a punch. Just a slow, crushing realization that this was real. That I wasn't crazy. That I hadn't imagined the shift between us. It had a name now. A face. A laugh. A neck she kissed in public. I closed the laptop slowly and stared at the blank screen. The reflection of my own face stared back, eyes empty, jaw tight. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. I felt hollow. Like something had been scraped out of me while I wasn't paying attention. But I needed more. Not for revenge. Not to catch her in a lie. I just needed something concrete, something undeniable. So I got in the car and drove to the bar listed in the metadata of one of the photos. It wasn't far. One of those trendy spots downtown with low lights and louder prices. I walked in and scanned the room. The host looked up and smiled, asking if I needed a table. No, I said, clearing my throat. I think my wife was here yesterday. Leslie? Tall, dark hair. With a guy named Tyler. They were sitting. I gestured toward the corner shown in the photos. There, I think. The host blinked. Then nodded slowly. Yeah, she was here. Not yesterday, though. The day before. Around 7. They had a booth. Stayed a couple hours. Was it just them? I asked. He looked around like someone might be watching. Yeah. Pretty cozy. Looked like a date. I thanked him and left. Sat in my car for a long time, staring at the steering wheel. This was it. The suspicion I'd been swallowing for weeks confirmed. The dots I tried not to connect, now drawn in permanent marker. Leslie hadn't just distanced herself from me. She'd replaced me. And worse than that, she was comfortable in it. Unbothered. Smiling. Playing games while I sat at home trying to figure out if I was the one who had changed. The next morning, I didn't mention what I'd found. I didn't ask questions. I didn't accuse. I just watched her. The way she poured coffee. The way she hummed while scrolling through her phone. Her screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize. She tilted it away from me. I nodded to myself. Not in anger, but in finality. She wasn't hiding it well anymore. Because she didn't think she had to. Because in her mind I'd already lost. I didn't say anything. That's how it started, the silence. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't confront her or throw the evidence on the table like a scene from a bad movie. I just stopped. That morning I made breakfast. 2 scrambled eggs, toast, black coffee, same as always. But I made it for one. I ate in silence while Leslie wandered in 10 minutes later, still towel drying her hair. She looked surprised to see me already finishing. No eggs for me? She asked with a little smirk. I looked up, gave her a neutral shrug, and said, figured you were running late. She blinked. Just a flicker of confusion or maybe guilt, and then she laughed. Fair enough. I'll grab something on the way. And just like that, we were playing a different game. One I had finally joined, but on my terms. That day, I left for work without the usual goodbye. No kiss on the cheek. No, have a good day. I didn't even glance back. In the office, I kept to myself. I stared at spreadsheets, half reading emails, nodding through meetings. No one noticed anything off. That's the funny thing, heartbreak doesn't look like much on the outside. It just sits quietly in your chest, rearranging the furniture of your life. At home, the pattern continued. She came back late, talking fast, animated, like she was trying to sell me something. I nodded, smiled when appropriate, even threw in the occasional, "Oh really?" But inside I was miles away. Over the next few days, I stopped initiating anything. No plans. No touch. No questions. Just stillness. Controlled detachment. She noticed. By the third night, she brought home Thai food, my favorite. She set the table, lit a candle, even pulled out those cloth napkins we hadn't used since our anniversary last year. "Figured we could do something nice tonight," she said casually, but her voice had an edge. A question hidden in the statement. I nodded, sat down, thanked her. Ate slowly. When she tried to talk, I listened but gave short replies. When she reached for my hand across the table, I pretended not to notice and adjusted my glass instead. The candle flickered between us. So did the silence. Later that night, she knocked on the bathroom door while I brushed my teeth. She peeked in, already in her pajamas. "Hey," she said. "Everything okay?" I looked at her in the mirror. "Yeah. Why wouldn't it be?" She lingered. "You've been different lately." I rinsed, spit, wiped my mouth. "Just tired." "From what?" I shrugged. "Work. Life." She didn't respond right away. Just stood there like she was waiting for a different version of me to emerge. One who would crack, confess, ask what was wrong. But I didn't. She went to bed first that night. When I came in, the lamp on her side was still on, casting a soft glow. She was facing away from me. I slipped under the covers, lay on my back, stared at the ceiling. Neither of us moved. The next few days followed the same rhythm. She started texting more. Little things, "Miss you, can't wait to see you tonight, thinking of you." Sweet, sure. But not real. Not anymore. I didn't respond. Not because I was trying to hurt her, but because I had nothing left to give. One afternoon, I came home early. Her car was in the driveway. That surprised me. I stepped inside quietly. No TV, no music. I found her in the guest room, curled up on the bed with one of our old photo albums open in her lap. She looked up, startled. "Hey," she said, voice soft. "Didn't hear you come in." I leaned against the doorframe. "Didn't expect you home. I took the day off. Needed a breather." She patted the album. "Found this in the closet." I nodded. "Remember this?" she asked, pointing to a photo of us at the lake. I was squinting into the sun. She was in mid-laugh, sunglasses sliding down her nose. "Yeah," I said. "It was a good day." She closed the album gently. "Feels like a long time ago." It was. A pause. Then, cautiously, "Are we okay?" I looked at her, really looked, and realized I didn't feel anything. Not anger. Not sadness. Just emptiness. Like the part of me that had once fought for this had already packed up and moved out. "I don't know," I said honestly. She swallowed hard and nodded like she'd been bracing for that answer. That night, she played one of our old playlists on the speaker, the one we used to cook to on weekends. She tried to dance with me in the kitchen like we used to, her hands reaching for mine. I stepped back and said I wasn't in the mood. She stopped the music. A day later, I found a note in my sock drawer. "I'm sorry if I've been distant. I love you. I want us back." I didn't write one back. Instead, I went to bed early. She climbed in beside me, but there was a full foot of space between our bodies. Her breathing was shallow. I could feel her not sleeping. It stayed that way for days. Then weeks. She tried dinners, conversations, shared shows. But I wasn't there. Not really. I was already gone in every way that mattered. One morning, I found her sitting in the living room with the same album in her lap. She didn't say anything. Just looked up as I walked by, eyes tired, face bare. We didn't speak. The silence between us wasn't loud anymore. It was just normal. That's when I realized we were finished. Not because of the affair, but because we no longer belonged to each other and hadn't for some time. It happened slowly, like everything else between us. No confrontation, no dramatic blow-up. Just a series of quiet decisions that eventually added up to the end. I rented an apartment across town, a small, one-bedroom place with big windows and white walls that held no memories. It wasn't much, but it was clean, quiet, and most importantly, mine. I didn't tell Leslie. Each day, I took something with me. A jacket here, a book there. Important documents, favorite mugs, clothes I actually wore. I moved like a ghost, disappearing piece by piece, hoping she wouldn't notice until it was too late for her to stop me. She didn't. Maybe she was too preoccupied. Maybe she didn't care. Or maybe she was waiting for me to make the move she wasn't brave enough to make herself. I called a locksmith on a Wednesday morning. Told him I needed the locks changed that same day. Gave him the new address and a time. I didn't feel anything as I made the call, not guilt, not doubt. Just a quiet certainty that this was what had to happen. That evening I waited. Leslie walked up the front steps around 6:15 p.m., her bag slung over her shoulder, sunglasses on her head. She looked tired. Distracted. She reached into her purse for the key and tried the door. The key didn't turn. She stopped, blinked, tried again. Still nothing. She knocked. I didn't answer. She rang the bell. Still nothing. Then came the texts. One after another. Why is my key not working? Are you home? Brian? Seriously, what is going on? I didn't reply. Then the calls started. First from her number. Then from unknown numbers. She left voicemails. The first one was angry, you need to explain this right now. The second was confused, please, just talk to me. The third one sounded scared. I blocked each number as it came in. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Over the next few days, the messages shifted tones like seasons: warm, cold, stormy, silent. First came the indignation. You can't just lock me out of our house. Then came the guilt-tripping. After everything we've been through? Then came the spin. I didn't mean for things to get so distant. We can talk. We should talk. She posted a photo on Instagram, an old one of us, blurry and backlit, from a vacation we barely enjoyed at the time. Captioned, missing better days? Mutual friends started texting me. Hey, Leslie said she hasn't been able to reach you. Is everything okay? She's really upset. I said nothing. Let her spin her narrative. Let her find out what it feels like to talk into silence. One day, a coworker dropped a package at my desk, a small box with no return label. Inside, a ceramic key dish I once pointed out at a farmer's market with a note, saw this and thought of you. I tossed it into the break room bin. Leslie sent me a long email the next night. For paragraphs. She said she missed me. Said she'd been doing a lot of thinking. Claimed she'd made mistakes but wasn't sure where things went so wrong. She didn't mention Tyler by name. She used words like disconnection and confusion. Said she still loved me. I didn't respond. Another email came a week later, shorter this time. A single paragraph. I don't know how we got here. I just want to talk. One real conversation. That's all I'm asking. Still, I stayed silent. That weekend, she left a voicemail I listened to exactly once. Her voice was low, almost hoarse. I didn't think you'd actually leave, Brian. I didn't think you'd just walk away. That was the moment it hit me. She never thought I had it in me. She never imagined a version of me who would choose himself. She thought I'd stay. Keep orbiting her like I always had. Forgiving. Waiting. Hoping. But I didn't. And that terrified her. She tried showing up at the old house once after learning through someone that I'd moved out. I had given the landlord notice and the locks had been changed again since the unit was being cleaned for the next tenant. She left a note taped to the door. This isn't how it's supposed to end. I crumpled it up and dropped it in the trash without reading the rest. The messages slowed after that. Then stopped. Like a fire that burns itself out when there's nothing left to feed it. One evening, I sat on the floor of my new apartment, a half-empty pizza box beside me, a record spinning something slow and sad. I looked around at the plain walls, the mismatched furniture, the single lamp in the corner. It should have felt lonely, but it didn't. Felt earned. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't someone's second choice. I wasn't someone trying to prove his worth. I was just a man who'd finally stepped away from the wreckage. And I was still standing. Weeks passed, then a month. Leslie faded like a storm that had torn through the neighborhood and left behind an eerie calm. She tried once more, a DM on a mutual friend's birthday post. Tell Brian I'm sorry. Truly. I read it. I didn't reply. Neither did the friend. She started leaving comments on old pictures, always the same tone. Regret masked as nostalgia. Can't believe this was a year ago. Miss this day. She tagged me once, then quickly untagged herself when no one responded. She sent a message through a coworker of mine, someone she barely knew, asking if I'd meet her for coffee. I declined. Politely, briefly. I had nothing left to say. Nothing she hadn't already ignored when it could have mattered. Then came the gifts. First a journal, leather-bound, wrapped in tissue paper, with a note. For whatever comes next. Then a photo frame, empty. Then nothing. I think that was when it really hit her, that I was gone. Not just moved out. Not just ignoring her. But truly emotionally gone. I hadn't left her out of anger. I hadn't stormed off to punish her. I left because I refused to live inside someone else's half-hearted love. What she had offered at the end, that apology, those gestures, they weren't about healing me. They were about saving herself from the silence she created. But I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty, just clarity. Some things aren't meant to be fixed. They're meant to be left behind. In the new apartment, mornings became something different. I'd wake up to stillness. Not the cold silence of a fractured home, but the soft, steady quiet of peace. No tension humming under the surface. No pretending. Just light through the blinds, coffee in my own mug, and a playlist I didn't have to compromise on. I started to breathe easier. I remembered how to enjoy things on my own. Walks, books, breakfast at the corner diner with nobody sitting across from me checking their phone. It wasn't loneliness. It was recovery. For a long time, I had twisted myself into a version that fit someone else's shrinking heart. I stopped doing that. I didn't rush into healing or try to mask it with distractions. I just gave myself space to exist. As I was, not as someone else's partner, not as someone left behind, but simply as Brian. People asked what happened. Close friends. A few family members. I gave short answers. We drifted. It wasn't working. If they pushed, I said, she made other choices. No one asked twice. The people who mattered understood. The rest didn't need to. Leslie became a name I no longer flinched at. Just another chapter. Another version of me I had outgrown. And Tyler, the man whose name once echoed in my head like a curse, became irrelevant. Not forgiven. Just meaningless. I stopped checking her pages. Stopped waiting for the next message. She had her chance to choose us. She chose something else. So I chose me. And that, more than anything, is what saved me. Because once someone breaks your dignity, you don't rebuild by chasing them. You rebuild by returning to yourself.